Get ready to beam down to a whole new Star Trek Universe series. Finally, the long-awaited Captain Christopher Pike adventure has come to our screens. Star Trek Strange New Worlds, the next addition to the ever-expanding Star Trek universe, has officially released today, May 5th. Set to follow the new voyages of Anson Mount's Christopher Pike, Rebecca remains number 1 and Ethan Peck's Mr. Spock. Not stopping at that, they have a whole new crew joining them as well. Strange New Worlds honestly feels like we've just stepped back into the world of Star Trek the original series. While this series is obviously brand spanking new for the long-standing sci-fi franchise, it's still paying an excellent homage to what has come before it. Both call on long-standing Star Trek lore that Trekkies can connect to, but also present new angles to both the characters we follow and the universe at hand. While initially, this first episode of a brand new series does not seem to push the show out into the final frontier, it sort of feels like a warm, friendly welcome to the show, almost as if one has never left the Star Trek universe. Perhaps that is who it's attempting to target. What I'm saying is that at some points it feels like viewers are expected to know who and what is going on right now on screen. Either way, in today's video review we're going to break down some key plot scenes in episode 1 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Spoiler warning, we'll be discussing the new series in full detail. As such, you have been warned. Welcome to Trek Central, I'm your host Captain Jack and let's get straight into it. Yes, I am wearing a Star Trek shirt today for, well, technically it's a Star Trek shirt, but we had to make it a little bit different, didn't we? Episode 1 of Strange New Worlds is titled Strange New Worlds, just like the series name. It's written by Akiva Goldsman, Alex Kurtzman and Jenny Lumet. Akiva Goldsman also directs this episode as well. Now like always, before we do dive into the video, if you want to keep up to date on all the latest Star Trek news, lore and more, then make sure to hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media for your daily updates on the Star Trek universe. We're getting super close to 100k subscribers here on YouTube. Can you help us reach it? If so, that'd be greatly appreciated. As always, please do let us know your thoughts in the comment section below, because if you are talking about Star Trek, then we want to hear about it. Okay, engage. Straight off the bat, one of the things we should talk about is the character development of Captain Christopher Pike. I think what the character is going through is handled rather well in this episode. Of course, Pike saw how he would die or his eventual fate in Star Trek Discovery's second season, via a time crystal. He knows how he'll meet his demise and be stuck in a wheelchair for most of his life. But is that stopping him and holding him back? That's where we find ourselves in the new series. I'm glad the series is already touching on this. The scene that follows the end of Discovery Season 2, i.e. the Enterprise leaving with next mission, has likely been retconned, and this is explained via a few factors. Notably as it seems since the mission, which is highly classified, Pike has gone off to be a little bit of a hermit and unsure of its own ability now following the time crystal problems. Immediately after this episode, my general thoughts are that I hope this is something that will follow Pike's story throughout the first season. It has been made clear by the producers and creators of Strange New Worlds that the series will follow an episode of the week style event. That said, events like Pike's will follow over the season arc, not just be forgotten next week. That's one of the key moments for Strange New Worlds as a whole. This is really good in my opinion, but hopefully we do get some things plotted out fairly well with this. A good example would be the writing style of the creators behind Star Trek Prodigy, where even though those characters are serialized and those episodes serialized, the character arcs and progression is something you can clearly see, with the creators going on record saying they know where the characters are heading, with their midpoint and where they'll eventually end up. The away mission is fairly simple. They've lost contact with a Starfleet ship, the USS Archer, which was going to make first contact with an alien civilization who had discovered warp. Fairly simple Star Trek stuff. However, I think the really cool thing about this away mission was that it wasn't the development of the warp engine, but the development of a matter-antimatter bomb, aka a warp engine bomb. Obviously the two operate similarly, but one is for propulsion of the stars and the other is to destroy. Similar-ish. But the fact that this warp-capable weapon was only able to be developed by these aliens because they were able to reverse engineer from scans they did of the battle near Zahir. The battle occurred at the end of the second season of Star Trek Discovery. Now obviously, some people were not a big fan of a massive battle of hundreds of ships going at it, but I think it's brilliant to at least have some consequences like this. A concentration of warp-capable ships warping in and going at it at close pre-warp species planets is going to cause problems. The one thing which struck me as odd with this mission is it seems there's only a crew of 3 aboard the USS Archer. That seems extremely small, so unless the ship is a really small scout ship, I do not know how to explain it. I don't know my starships. I guess it's more for the story, so they didn't have to beam hundreds of people from the alien planet. But if it's such a small detail, it could have just been a small shuttle or even a new design of ship. The USS Archer looks to be a Saladin, Hermes or Nelson class. All of these ships are from Beta Canon and have similar silhouettes and designs, which have a single underslung nacelle below its saucer section. I'd probably say it's for Nelson class, as it doesn't seem to have an underslung main sensor. Now, to go undercover on the planet, Pike, Lan and Spock underwent temporal cosmetic gene therapy to look like these aliens. This is a really cool concept, but I'd like it to be shown more in the show, and then later on to find out maybe it's not such a good idea to do this, with some unintended side effects, and therefore it's not commonly used later in the show, explaining why later shows do not use such technology. You know, thinking about this and watching it, I had flashbacks to Star Trek Enterprise, specifically in the away missions where Phlox would alter the appearance of Archer and his crew to go down and investigate pre-warp civilizations. Maybe it was a cheeky callback to that. I think how Pike decides to solve this problem is really cool and speaks a lot to his character. He decides that General Order 1 doesn't really apply here, due to their involvement in these people gaining the warp technology in the first place. Even knowing that Starfleet doesn't agree with him, they cannot officially say how these aliens got the technology, due to the discovery and control instance. So Pike goes down and shows these people what will happen if they continue to fight. It will cause the destruction of their world and kill numerous people. This scene is extremely on the nose, talking about the Second American Civil War and then World War III. Yes, it kind of is on the nose. But it is really what Star Trek is all about. The 21st century is meant to be painful, as it shows us that if we continue on our current path, what will happen, and it is something worth avoiding. It also seems to coincide with Star Trek Picard, in moving the eugenics war to the 21st century, though it's still a period in time which I guess we can still have wiggle room in the law. I'm not too big a fan of moving eugenics war, but it is what it is and sort of does make more sense. Now already from this first episode, we not only get some great character interactions, but you also get a really good feel for a lot of these characters. You know what they're about and know the dynamics between each other. Even going to characters like Transporter Chief Kyle, you can see he is very competent at his job, but doubts himself every now and again. You can see how this younger nurse Chapel is very sure of what she's doing, but we can see from the get-go that Pike has a previous relationship with Dr. Mbenga. Mbenga knows Chapel, and Lan knows Number 1, who we very much get a fantastic look into this crew, and I look forward to seeing much more of them as the series goes on. Speaking of the crew, 2 of the latest additions to the Enterprise arrive at the tail end of the first episode. This being Chief Engineer Hemmer, who we sort of already know from promotion material, and another character who some might remember. We're of course talking about George Samuel Kirk, or just Sam Kirk as he's being nicknamed. When they first mentioned Kirk in the episode, I was so afraid we were going to be bogged down with Kirk's references. Thankfully, we were not, and I'm keen to see how James Kirk's brother actually handles himself in the series, and what it will mean for Star Trek lore going forward. Though even though the crew really shone in this episode, we have to talk about Admiral Robert April. April is finally in a live-action Trek show, as the first captain of the USS Enterprise, Pike's former captain. Since the news of Adrian Holmes playing April broke online, there has been a lot of discussion about him playing April, and we think he's great for the job. He brings some real gravitas to the role, obviously a captain of the Enterprise, especially the first, and don't worry, we are not forgetting about Archers, that was a very different Enterprise, needed such a presence. It would seem April was only recently promoted to the role of Admiral, which makes sense considering how many Admirals were lost during the Federation-Klingon War in Discovery. Anderson, Cromwell, and the 3 Admirals oversaw Section 31, and who knows who else. It does seem like April has a new comfy location to place his flag, which is this new Federation starbase. But it seems like this starbase is Starbase 1, which was previously on the outer reaches of the Sol system, and seen destroyed by the Klingons during the war. So it seems like it was possibly recovered and brought further into the Sol system around Jupiter, and had these domes affixed to it. I have to say, I really love this starbase's design, and making a modified Discovery model is not only good for budget, but also great for world building as well. Obviously some reuse of models such as Discovery shuttles in Picard is a pain for world building and lore, but when Strange New Worlds is so close to Star Trek Discovery's first 2 seasons, it works really well and makes sense. Also fascinating is that these biodomes were originally from Earth during the Third World War, in order to be preserved and then have continued to grow in space. Also excellent how they tied it together to show that things can grow in space, including ourselves. It's a nice little message when you think about it. Lan Noonien Singh has been an interesting character since she was first announced, especially with her last name, Noonien Singh, but her backstory is much darker than I would expect. I felt how it was written in the episode was kind of clunky, but fulfilled its purpose of not only giving us a look into this character's backstory, but also inspiring Pike to find a solution to some of these factions on the planet for murdering themselves. So, we get some Gorn info here, and I know a lot of people might jump this by saying it doesn't make sense that we're getting Gorn stuff, considering first contact with the Gorn happens during Kirk's time on the Enterprise. Well, it's mostly reports and unverified reports from a lone survivor. I think it's pretty cool that the Gorn are the enemies that attack colonies on the edge of a Federation space, and are unknown for a while. This could also further explain how Lorca had a Gorn skeleton in the first season of Star Trek Discovery. Perhaps getting off the black market, maybe the Orions or Klingons, who have had actual first contact with the Gorn before. There are some new additions to the Gorn which are gruesome, and that they capture people from colonies and ships and deposit them on nursery planets, to use not only as food for their young, but also breeding sacs to raise their young. This is pretty disturbing, and it does look like we're in the later episode going to delve into this traumatic past of Lan, but hopefully we don't see anything that graphic, as this is Star Trek after all. Okay, time for some of my final thoughts. This was a fairly safe episode coming out of the gates, and even though it didn't overly wow me, it shows us a lot of promise for the show, and I'm very much looking forward to the future adventures aboard the USS Enterprise. We get a lot of beautiful ship shots, and my do they look fantastic. One immediate vibe I get from this series, which is good, is we're still in the early days of the Federation. By this I mean we're not yet at the Next Generation era where laws and regulations are super strict. The captains like Pike and James Kirk were able to bend the rules to fit them and have more fun gallivanting out there in the final frontier, which is fantastic personally and hopefully fills in for what we're expecting with this series. When we look at what the series will be as a whole, I don't think it's trying to break new ground, rather establish the classic Star Trek essence back in mainstream media. And even though we're still going for a classic stance, it's still championing Star Trek's spirit of diversity and inclusion a franchise has came to be known for. Each new Star Trek series is meant to be a part of a larger buffet. That is the way I and many others describe it. Not every series is going to be for everyone. I think the way they're targeting Star Trek Strange New Worlds is to play it safe and target the fans who are not fans of the new Star Trek editions. These are the likes of Picard and Discovery for example. How the series will hold up in the long run does remain to be seen. Either way, I'm looking forward to it. Don't forget you can watch Star Trek Strange New Worlds on Paramount Plus in the United States and CTV Sci-Fi in Crave and Canada. I think that's it. You can also watch it on a few websites in India and New Zealand. Head over to trekcentrage.net to learn all the details about everything we know about Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Oh, and also, Paramount Plus is coming to the UK on June 22nd, 2022. That's just over a month and a bit away. Either way, it's good news, even if it does mean some UK Trekkies will miss Strange New Worlds. But if you're watching this review, you might have seen it already, if so, what do you think of the first episode for Star Trek Strange New Worlds Episode 1? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, because like always, if you're talking about Star Trek, then we want to hear about it. If you do want to keep up to date on all the latest Star Trek news, lore and more, then make sure to hit the subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media or join our community Discord server. For now, I've been Captain Jack, thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time. Live long and prosper my friends, goodbye.